Well, morning. I'm Emma Chesson. I've worked for Creston Reeves for almost 20 years. I work with a range of businesses from startups all the way through to businesses that have been long established. My passion really lies with those businesses that have got a growth mindset and that are really looking to grow. I like to try and help them understand where they are today and empower them to build out a plan for growth and where they could get to in the future.
Hello, I'm Lindsay Light. I joined Creston Reeves about 9 years ago now. I've been advising businesses of different sizes, from succession planning through to growing their business. I want to be known for encouraging others to find their voice in business and help them to grow. The problem we are finding is there's too much focus on today and tomorrow instead of thinking ahead to accelerate true potential. Institutions alone are not able to keep up with these developmental gaps.
We believe that we understand where those gaps lie in traditional learning to support the growth that businesses need and help them realise their true potential.
We have been working closely with an economist, Darren Sherlock, who is well renowned for predicting and following economic trends. There's a trend that goes back hundreds of years that shows a period of 14 years flat and 18 years of growth. This is a macro trend. We look back to the period from 1967 to 1981. If you put a pound in the stock market at 1967, you would get that same pound back in 1981. Obviously, in between this period, the economy fluctuated. In 1974, we had the oil crisis. But overall, the period was a flat 14 years. From 1981 to 1999, we then had 18 years of significant growth. Again, 6 to 7 years into this period, in 1987, we had Black Monday. The economy did struggle, but it recovered and then had a huge growth period after that. From 1999 to 2013, we had another 14 years flat period, with the 2008 mortgage crisis in the middle. The stock market still leveled out at the end. So, what's next? From the period of 2013 through to 2031, we have the next 18 years of growth. As predicted, 6-7 years in, we're in 2020 with the coronavirus. This is looking like it will be an L-shaped recession. Looking back at the economic trends, we can predict that the next 10 years from September 2021 to 2031, we will have significant growth. The last 5 years of this period, from 2026 to 2031, will be the boom period with the most growth.
So in a business context, generally, we don't tend to see businesses start to invest until they see the growth. So in this scenario, that will be next year, 2021. Then usually it would take 12 to 18 months until the investment takes hold. So they don't reap the benefits of that whole 10-year growth period. Obviously, at the moment, we're kind of going through the shock phase with everything that's going on, which is completely understandable. A lot of businesses are going through fear around the uncertainty. But what we've seen in previous recessions is actually for those businesses that can get themselves through that fear and start to see the opportunity, there's so much innovation that comes out of recession periods. So for those that can look at those opportunities, we then move into the recovery and the rebuild phases, ready for that high growth period when we start to go into the top part of the L for the L-shaped recession. So that those that are starting to plan for growth now find themselves that they are ahead of the curve and help to lead that change going forward.
So what is growth? I'm sure if I asked you all, you would have different definitions. Some would say it's sales, revenue. Others would argue it's your bottom line profits. At Creston Reeves, we run a growth school where we consider the 3 main types of growth being sales, margin, and strategic. One of the ways I can demonstrate this is by talking about a coffee shop. For example, if I owned a coffee shop and I wanted sales growth, that would be trying to fill as many seats in the coffee shop as possible and get as many customers in. For margin growth, I would then be, once those seats are filled, I would then be trying to make my customers spend more. So for example, they could buy a coffee and a slice of cake. we find businesses do not do margin growth quite enough. And then finally, we have strategic growth. So this is if I already owned one coffee shop and I wanted to open another one on franchise.
So another way to look at this could be like houses. So obviously the illustration you can see lends itself quite nicely to that. At the bottom, we've got the base. So that's the foundation of the house that helps to support your business, with investment in the bigger things like accounting systems, internal structures. Then above that, you'll see that we've got the living space. So that's the day-to-day where you live. What helps you to create growth within your business. So there's a lot of focus on the products and services. And then at the top, invariably you generally have a roof. So that is the asset that helps to protect your house. And that's the asset that you're actually investing into. So a bit like houses, you tend to find that most people invest more in the living space and not in the foundation or the roof. And if you don't maintain those foundations or your roof, then your living space is compromised. So looking again through those different models, so sales growth is what it says on the tin. Business focuses more on sales. Generally, they've got a spare capacity and resources. The cost base is locked in, but they can manage more sales without more costs. So in the coffee shop example, customers finding more customers to fill up that coffee shop. It leads to sales and marketing focus, and thus being more top line approach. In the middle with the margin growth, this is more of a bottom line approach where we're looking at efficiency, cost management, pricing, quality, service, customer journeys, all of that kind of stuff. In theory, the business has got enough clients now to make money, and many owners find it difficult to focus on both the top and the bottom line at the same time. And then lastly, we move on to the strategic growth. So this is the value equation. So how do you make the business grow in terms of the value, assets, and the growth in size of operations?
It's important to consider what kind of growth you want for your business. Given the current challenges we are facing, this might help you to focus on the area most suitable for your business now. So, our 3 top tips to grow a business at a time like now. First, we have purpose. What do you want to be known for, and how do you want your business to show up? The world of business is changing, and profit alone is not enough to satisfy business owners and the wider society. Key question in the 21st century is, what is our purpose? Now is not the time to sell. Now is the time to build your brand and engage. And when I talk about brand, I'm not talking about your logos, your colour scheme, anything like that. That is all branding. Your brand is driving your purpose through your entire revenue system, through your products and services, the channels you go to market through, and how you sell them. To be successful, your purpose has to be authentic, resonating with staff and customers, and lived day in, day out. It needs to be the golden thread that runs through the DNA of your business. Businesses with a strong purpose are seeing valuations increase.
Then we move on to people. So this is where, if we were in a room right now, I would be asking everyone to put their hands up if they want to be famous. Typically, we only get 1 or 2 hands that go up. Then we'll move on and ask who wants to be known within your industry for making a difference. That's always an interesting one because we start to see more hands going up there. And then we want to know who wants to be known in the world for your purpose and making a difference. And we get a few more hands going up here. So I think it goes to prove that we normally go from 1 or 2 to a fair few, and it's all linked to their purpose. And it goes to show that fame is actually a state of mind. I think that fame has a bit of a bad press with some of the reality stars that you see that perhaps use their fame without any sort of true purpose or meaning. But fame linked with a purpose is actually really powerful. So if we look back to the 70s, 80s and 90s, you'll see that we were in what's known as the what era. So this is where there was a lot of focus on the image of products and products themselves. So you had more of a choice around different colours of products and that kind of thing. After that, we then moved into the why era. So a lot of you have probably heard of a chap called Simon Sinek. He helped move this trend into mainstream. So this started the move from product into people with the why positioning. Now we are finding ourselves in the who era, so an extension of that people trend, where we are all suddenly our own brand. Just look at social media influencers on platforms like Instagram and YouTube. It's all about building that emotional connection with the end users, so it's people to people, and it just goes to show that it's now more important than ever to have a face to your business. So who could that face be within your business? That's something for you to look at. It doesn't have to be the owner. And what we find is that it can help to open more channels. So an example we've had in the past where there's been a business and they spoke to their staff, and there's people within the business that have actually got a few thousand followers on Instagram because they've got a bit of a side hustle being a fitness being a fitness guru. So you just don't know until you speak to your staff what the true potential is there in terms of channels and the community that you can build. I mean, that won't be for everyone. So we like to look at it like a football pitch. So you'll have your midfield and your defence. So there'll be those that don't want to be front facing, those that are happy to dabble with it. And then you've got your people, your strikers up front that are willing to put themselves out there and be that face. So have a look at what that could look like in your business.
And finally, we have innovate. If you look at your business now, you need to consider what your business could be. What do you want to be known for? It's time to create engagement. You need to look at who you are talking to and who else you could be talking to, from your core customers to your new generations and your influencers. As an example, we have seen Joe Wicks recently. So he's the body coach, he's done cookbooks, fitness DVDs, everything like that. During the lockdown, he found a gap in the market. He started to run an online PE session. This has broadened his audience and pulled the market online, increasing his brand awareness while still keeping a strong purpose. This has created engagement so that people will remember him long after this is over. And once you've got to that stage, you will find people are more loyal because they have a connection with you. So how can you move your business online and pull the market to you? You need to look for the gaps in your market.
So we've got a video here that we're going to show you that gives an example of that emotional connection and what that looks like. So here we see an example of an advert that shows purpose. It shows what Dettol stand for. Nowhere in that do you see what their products and services are. And this is where they're really showing what they care about and what's true to them. Obviously, this is quite a timely example, and we're seeing a lot of these coming up now. I mean, I was watching TV the other day and I saw one for Virgin where it's kind of showing the struggles that everyone's going through right now with working from home, juggling childcare, working out at home, all of that stuff that we're all going through. And there's one with Nationwide where the lady's talking to herself in 6 months' time, which is quite a nice one. I quite like that one. But they're all very true to now. But if you want to look at something, another example outside of this, then I encourage you to look up Velux and the indoor generation, because that's a really powerful one where it's very linked with their purpose. and they let their purpose really shine through.
So now we invite you to consider what your business could look like. We want you to look at your different areas. So your brand, what your purpose is and what it could be. Has this changed? Your products, do you have a variety of products from short-term, long-term income, equity? We find that actually most businesses have more short-term income, and actually that's not the way to prepare themselves for growth. Your channels, how many routes to market do you have? Do you have push and pull? Are you pulling the market to you? Do you have online and offline? At a time like this, obviously online is becoming more and more popular. And sales, what type of growth do you want? Sales, margin, strategic?
So this is where you should have a look at your industry and how has it evolved. Look at 10, 20 years ago compared to today. We've already seen a shift from sort of around 2006, which was pre-digital era. Everything was offline. How did you price then and how did you sell? How does that compare to today? So let's use accounting as an example, because that's one that Lindsay and I can talk about quite happily. So in the olden days, we used to receive paper bag of client records, all very manual. Invariably, we get farms covered in all sorts of interesting substances, checkbook stubs. Now we've seen a move from that into software such as Xero and QuickBooks. So this is enabling with all sorts of real-time insights, businesses to be more proactive and look at business planning a lot quicker than they ever would have done in the past. In the past, it would have been a lot more reactive. So what could your business look like in the future? What gaps are there emerging that you could fill? Now's a really great time to look at those trends and how they're evolving. People are changing their habits at the moment with all of the working from home, adapting, homeschooling, and we're starting to see businesses already adapting to this. So what opportunities are presenting themselves to you and your industry? And what we'll find is that the businesses that do start to look at this now will end up ahead of the game, really nicely positioning themselves ready for the 10 years of growth.
So thank you for joining us. We'll be picking up on any questions at the panel discussion at the end. So if anyone has anything to add, please comment or add it into the Q&A section.
Yeah, as you see, our contact details are above if you want to get hold of either of us after this. But for now, that's it from us, and we'll pass you over to Richard.
Hello, everybody. I hope you can all hear me. My name is Richard Pilton. I'm the CEO at Kayo Digital. I'd like to thank Emma and Lindsay for turning up today, and I hope you all have found their talk useful. I hope everyone also is staying safe and not getting too bored during this rather unfamiliar time. A little bit of intro into who are Kayo Digital. I'll keep this brief. We're an award-winning technical agency based at Kent Science Park. We provide websites, mobile apps, bespoke software and digital marketing services. This event is our actual second Kayo.How event. The previous one was not a webinar, but obviously because of the current situation, we're doing this online. We use research and the scientific method to help our customers grow their businesses. And my talk today is to present you to the headline findings of a research study we performed at the end of last year. Before I go into the report, I want to touch on insight and the importance. So, kind of insight and why do you need it? The better you understand your industry sector, the better you understand the effects of your geographical location, the state of the market, and particularly how future customers act and how they work, the better the decisions you make to direct your company towards success. Too often, companies make decisions based on what is now becoming known as the HIPPO, which is the highest paid person's opinion. This generally means whoever is the MD or the CEO, their opinion is what goes, regardless if it is right or not. Now, without insight into your issues, you're only left with opinion, and one person's opinion is a statistical sample of one, which, as you're probably aware, is not a particularly good statistical sample. See, with insight, you achieve better commercial decisions, you get less friction among decision-making teams like directors and managers, and you avoid wasting time by avoiding pointless discussions about things that don't and won't work. So we recommend get the insight and go with the evidence. We tend to, at Kayo, group insight into two main areas, which is competitor insight and customer insight. Customer insight gives you an understanding of what your potential customers are doing, what they're asking, what they're looking for, and it allows you to position your company or your business in order to maximize the rate at which they convert into full customers. Now, competitor insight shows you what your competitors are doing, how they are doing it, what results they're getting, and finally, and sometimes most importantly, what they are not doing. It's worthwhile saying, with respect to who your competitors are, it's worth pointing out that the best companies to compare may not be who you think they are. From a digital marketing perspective, there's quite a simple exercise that you can try, which is to use Chrome, use incognito mode in Chrome if you're Google it if you're not aware of it. This enables you to get results which are not tailored to you or where you are, and basically try to search for your products and services. Use the terminology and the keywords that you think, or preferably that you found out that people are using when they're searching for your product or service. Whoever is in the top 3 results, even if you don't think they're actual competitors to you, they are your digital competitors. And they're often good to include in any competitor analysis that you're doing. The 2 lists we've got here are just some examples of some of the activities we perform in order to get information about both customer and competitor analysis. Okay, so the Kayo Digital Review. What we did. Every year, the 50 fastest growing companies are announced, or 50 fastest growing companies in Kent are announced. It's usually in the Kent Messenger, I believe, and I think it's called the Mega Growth. So we analysed those fastest growing companies. Well, all but one. One of them was a McDonald's franchise, and analysing McDonald's.com website was not necessarily going to provide us with any useful results. But basically, we wanted to find out what these companies are doing with their websites, what they're doing on social media, what types of advertising they're using, and what technologies they employ. This process or this method can be done with any company's competitors, and the results of these can be used to benchmark any company's performance, and more importantly, identify opportunities that can be exploited. Remember, just because these are the fastest growing companies in Kent, that does not mean that they are the best at digital activities, not necessarily. Often finding out what companies are not doing, as I keep saying, is more useful than finding out what they are doing. That's where the opportunities lie. We at Kayo recommend performing these kinds of studies and comparisons periodically, as you're probably aware, competitors, any company doesn't stand still. So I want to touch a little bit on the methodology. We analysed all of the websites and the digital activity of those 50 companies, and then we grouped them into 3 main areas: awareness, engagement, and sales. Awareness, basically, that's when companies and consumers need help, they need to know who to turn to. This is what brand awareness is responsible for. Simply, awareness is how people view and remember your brand. and it ensures that even if they're not interested in your products or services now, in the future, if and when they do need your products or services, they think of you, or they suggest you to other people. Then we have engagement. This covers everything from website, social media, PR, and other activities. You measure engagement by things like seeing how often people like a post, so how often they share a blog, how often they visit your website. You can imagine all the tools used to measure those. And in this kind of world of ever shrinking attention spans, we all need to earn the right to engage with our target audience and measure how well we're doing. And the aim is to improve that over time. And finally, what people often think of the most important one is the sales part of this funnel. It's often quoted that a website is the shop front of an organization, but anyone who sees this as its only function is kind of doing a successful site a disservice. A better metaphor in modern times would be that websites are businesses' digital business development managers. It's not just a shop front. A quick bit of a breakdown on the overview of the companies involved. 76% of the companies were B2B, 22% were B2C, and 2% of the companies had both B2B and B2C capabilities. And then in terms of commodities versus service-based businesses, there was about 50-50. I think there was one or two companies that fell outside of this categorization. So, the results of what we found from analysing all of these companies. I think this actually took us quite a few weeks to put all of this together. And actually, it's worthwhile pointing out that every analysis we did was passive. In the review that you will all be getting a copy of, it does even show you the tools we use to get all of the information within this. All of this information is available, it's achievable, you can do it yourselves. So the results, we'll start with an overview of the general performance of these companies. Generally speaking, most of the companies, but I must stress, not all, quite a lot of the companies lacked the main fundamentals of profitable online footprint. And it's good to show that we considered what we considered to be best in class from companies were those companies that performed at least 75% of the digital activities that we reviewed. Now, here it shows that for awareness, only 27% of the companies displayed a best-in-class strategy, 4% displayed a best-in-class engagement strategy, and 34% displayed a best-in-class sales strategy. With these numbers, it shows that even the fastest-growing companies in Kent still have room to improve. Excuse me. And more importantly, there are opportunities for all other companies in Kent to grow as well and even surpass those fastest growing companies. So the actual results in awareness. So 65% of the companies use social media, but 69% of their owners have a media profile on LinkedIn. This kind of shows that some companies still believe that people buy people and promote themselves more than their company. It's much harder to build your brand when you are focusing more on the owner of the business rather than the business itself. There was a direct split between, quite a big split between B2B and B2C. B2B companies probably could learn from B2C companies here. B2B averagely posting 7 times a month on social media, and B2C companies posting an average of 33 times a month. Remember, if you're even in B2B companies, you are still selling to people in a business, and those people use social media. Remarketing and display advertising. So 14% of companies invested in this. We didn't find this as a surprise. There's a concept called banner blindness. It is a long-known web user behavior. It is a tendency to ignore page elements that are perceived to be ads, and these results kind of demonstrate the general lack of faith in this type of advertising. I imagine this this percentage in future years will stay quite low. 59% of companies used customer reviews. We're a little bit surprised about this. This is actually quite low. There's current data and current research which highlights that people are nearly 3 times more likely to purchase a product when there is a review for it. Reviews are free, although you have to do a bit of work. You know, you need to ask happy customers to go and review you on Trustpilot, on Google, and things like that. So I'm quite surprised it is as low as 59%. Finally, video. Only 36% of the companies had invested in a video. And again, this one, there was a real disparity between types of companies. 75% of B2C companies had invested in video, and only 18% of B2B companies had. Now, YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. B2B companies are missing a bit of a trick here when it comes to getting in front of potential prospects or potential customers who are looking to have a question answered. So now to move on to engagement. 14% of companies used paid advertising. So this is things like pay-per-click on Google is the most commonly used one. Now there's data has been published by Ofcom that found that only about half of adults could reliably identify the difference between sponsored search results and natural search results. This kind of implies that there's no difference to a large proportion of people using Google. See, and again, we saw B2B falling behind with B2C. 2% of B2B companies using paid advertising and 60% of B2C companies using paid advertising. Now, moving on to newsletters. I actually thought this was quite high. Newsletters are increasingly being seen as old hat. So I wouldn't be surprised in future years if this percentage goes down even further. People are not generally interested in getting their information from companies' newsletters anymore. It tends to be moving more towards social media. Client testimonials. So I'm going to touch on social proof here. Social proof is the concept that people will follow the actions of others through recommendations. So it's surprising that only 27% are using testimonials on their website. The power of social proof shouldn't be undervalued. A recent research paper highlighted that, unsurprisingly, 92% of people will trust a recommendation from a peer, but quite surprisingly, 70% will trust a recommendation from someone they don't even know. I've seen quite good use of testimonials recently on a lot of websites where they're starting to put testimonials at the top of contact forms or inquiry forms. It's to kind of bolster and give that credibility, make them feel more confident about getting in touch with you. Again, client testimonials, they only require work. They require you to provide a good product or a good service, and then just ask clients for testimonials. Quite often people write testimonials and then ask clients to approve them. So yeah, I really think people should use more testimonials on their websites. Social media being used to interact with customers and prospects. social media isn't being used as widely as we would expect. Less than a third here of the companies who utilize social media as their main driving force to interact with clients and prospects. This is quite surprising. In last year, I think we saw the tipping point where people are spending more time on the internet than watching television. Television has been king for decades, and perceived as untouchable. So now the internet is the most popular medium, and social media is a massive part of it. People are now preferring to ask support questions on social media, provide reviews, even provide complaints or submit complaints. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, getting complaints submitted, because you can answer those complaints and then people can read them and evaluate the complaint for themselves. So moving on to the sales category. I think this was the most surprising statistic for me. Call to actions. Examples of call to actions are things like inquiry forms, find more info buttons, call me buttons, even add to baskets. They are all call to actions. A call to action is basically how you change your website from being just a digital brochure to being a business development manager. We only saw 43% of companies using a call to action on their website. And according to Wingify, they told us that when a call to action works, it can increase the sum of work inquiries by, on average, 49%. So without call to actions, you could have done a lot of work in awareness and a lot of work in engagement and succeeded in all those parts of the funnel. But without a call to action, your conversion rate may be so low that the work you've done is a waste of time. So we were quite surprised that calls to action were less than 50%. Interestingly, only 19% of companies that sell commodities sell to users directly through an e-commerce platform. The rest of them choose to contact them directly. Insight into web behavior shows that new purchasers of a commodity tend to visit multiple sites trying to find a price or a ballpark before contacting any one of those that don't. Now, a lot of companies might think in the commodities arena might say, well, my industry doesn't really publish prices, but it may be that should be seen as an opportunity rather than as a trend that can't be bucked. Finally, in sales, live chat and chatbots. They're still being seen as a novelty in the market. It tends to only be used by larger blue chip companies. But we are seeing them break into the SME and the large corporate market. Already 6% of Kent's fastest growing companies have one on their website. Research shows that web users are starting to move towards live chat over telephone. I don't exactly know why. My personal opinion is that I use them when I don't want to leave a message, use a bulletin board system, or get put in a queue. I think the use of live chat is only going to increase in the world, and I would predict that this 6% next year will also increase. Now, in addition to these three categories, sales, awareness, engagement, and sales, we also did a bit of an analysis on some of the technologies, and here are some of the headline findings of what technologies people are using, and it's some evaluations from a technology perspective. 20% of websites of the fastest growing companies in Kent, 20% of those websites are not fully responsive. This means that when viewing their websites on a mobile device, like a phone or a tablet, the website does not respond in order to display it nicely. This doesn't mean you can't see your website. It's just that bad websites which don't fully respond tend to reduce the size of everything and require you to zoom in. This is quite surprising. It's not hard to make websites fully responsive. Most content management systems do this out of the box, and every web design and marketing company would be providing responsive websites. A lot of companies now are even moving to designing websites with mobile in mind first, and then desktops later. The percentage of internet traffic on mobile devices is huge, and I suspect it's only going to grow. This was just this point just out of interest, really. This isn't surprising to us. 50% of the fastest growing companies in Kent websites are built using WordPress. I think the statistic at the moment is around 70% of websites, all websites across the world, are using WordPress. So this is not unsurprising to us. Now, the last two here are scores that you can get from Google. I think it's a Google Lighthouse or Lightbox. I'll have to check that. And they provide scores of entire websites based on things like accessibility and speed and usability of mobile devices. Now, accessibility is for people who are have certain disabilities, like difficult to see and use screen readers and things like that. 75 out of 100 is a good score. So all those companies in Kent averaging 75 is good. Now, the speed and the usability of mobile devices, probably reflecting the first point there, is that we're finding that averagely companies' websites are quite slow, and they're not great on mobile devices. A score of 35 out of 100, so it shows that there is quite a lot of improvement that can be made for those companies. So just to, I'll kind of wrap this up now. I'm pretty sure I've gone over my time. I know there's been a lot of information, and hopefully I didn't talk too quickly. But if there's, I've kind of put together, if there's 5 takeaways I think you should take away from this talk. One is that, reviews and testimonials, they're free, collect them, use them. They help not with just SEO, they help with credibility. They enable you to post things on social media. If you're not, if you haven't got a process in place to collect and use reviews and testimonials, I recommend putting that in. Use video to answer common questions. As we said before, YouTube is the 2nd largest search engine on the internet. People don't use FAQ sections that much anymore. And I think it would, basically what you can do is create a video for every one of your FAQs, hosted on YouTube, embedded in your website, and it gives another medium for people to be able to find you. Yes, make sure your website is responsive to phone and tablets. Design mobile first. This is only going to become increasingly important as time moves on. Consider putting a call to action on every page. Tell the customer what you need them to do in order to actually communicate with you. You could increase the number of inquiries or the conversion rate of your website simply by clearly telling the user what to do. And finally, for any commodity companies out there, even if you think this is not a trend that could be bucked, consider using e-commerce or publishing prices. People who have been the first to display prices or give the ability to place an order online in commodity industries have gained quite a competitive advantage over other companies. Just to remind everyone who attended today, will get a copy of the digital review report sent out, and we will be doing these every single year now. So I'd like to say thank you very much for listening. I believe we have a question and answer session now, so I'll pass you back to Harry.
Cool. Thank you very much, Richard. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions here that I'm going to go over. And just as a kind of reiterate, if there's something we don't answer now, if you can send it to me or one of the members, you'll have everyone's contact details after this, so you'll easily be able to access them. Please do. But one of the first questions I've had is, and unfortunately, Richard, this isn't for myself and you, what is a bounce back loan? I think I should probably look at Emma and Lindsay about this, and how can it support during the coronavirus times?
Thanks, Harry. So the bounce back loan was announced only 2 days ago now. And this is a loan of up to £50,000 available for businesses. It's more for the smaller businesses that might be struggling to get a CBILS loan, or one of the support available. And this will be a much easier way of being able to get a loan much quicker. So if anyone is struggling, it is meant to be quite a simple process.
Cool.
Yeah. CBILS is the coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, which has had quite a lot of press around it. So that's typically for slightly larger businesses, and I think they've probably brought this in because there's been quite a bit of delay actually in some of these going through. I think stats a week or so ago, a very small percentage were going through, which kind of backfires in terms of what the aim for these things is to do. So I know that there's been a lot of pressure to the institutions to make the CBILS more readily available, but the bounce back is aimed at those smaller businesses. I think that the glimmer of hope is that we've started to see with our clients that more of the CBILS applications are actually starting to go through now. I mean, I've had one that went through a couple of days ago, where originally the bank had said no for real perceivable reason, and then it's been reallocated to another office. They've re-looked at it and they've allocated it. So for those that are looking at that as a source of potential finance, then it's normally we encourage you to go to your own banks for the CBILS side of things.
Cool, thank you very much. This one I'll take just before, but if anyone has any additional comments, please add them. Someone's asked, it's a two-part question, so I'll do the first part first, actually. How have businesses, what sort of change have we seen during coronavirus? So I think probably the one I'll straight away bring up is, well, online businesses are doing well. And that's not just the Amazons, that is everyone really, because what we've actually seen is, and if I use the word circle of influence, that means people that currently engage with you, people that have worked with your company before. There's real support in the community to help other businesses. So we've seen Watts Farms, a kind of a local farm, who moved onto online delivery and actually have a real amount of community support by posting on social media saying we've had to move to an online business because we can't do our current way of like a trade. And we've seen some real engagement with that kind of we've gone online, please support us. And I think it's a real opportunity now because businesses have already taken it up, but actually if historically you are a kind of brick and mortar meeting in person, there has to be a bit of a pivot in your in the way you run business at the moment, but there's been some really positive signs. Revenues increasing by 2-3 times on, well, 2-3 times online. So yeah, that's one thing I've kind of noticed, but I don't know if anyone else has noticed anything.
I think there will be quite a few changes after the COVID crisis. Yeah, I think companies are working from home. They're having more meetings online. I don't consider how.
Oh, sorry, Richard, you've frozen.
As well. Yeah, I think say is going to be a lot less by going to where the
Oh, I think we might have lost Richard.
I think we've lost Richard. I think to conclude, I'm going to guess what he's about to say is people have gone online and they're a lot more likely to do meetings through like Microsoft Teams, like we're doing now, the webinars. I think it's allowed it to be a lot more, well, meeting people has become easier to an extent. You don't have to do the travel, but also you have, you don't have that natural relationship now. But yeah, I'm going to guess that's what he was going to say. The second part to the question was, and it's actually been reinforced here, we've got another one of this. Do people want to be sold to right now, or should it be focusing on awareness? I think that's a really good question. And I think Emma and Lindsay touched upon it a bit earlier. It's yes, people don't want to be sold to now because right now we're all coping. But what you can do is that awareness is actually in the sales funnel Richard mentioned. That awareness side is huge because when people want to buy, you want to be the first person they think about. And so through that, I mean, actually, this is not the time to go quiet because your competitors are probably going quiet. This is the time to speak more. Can you do more charity work? Can you support more stuff that actually brings back to the community, or stuff that really helps those circles of influence? I think it's integral now to kind of build up those awareness, because no, potentially people aren't to be sold to unless you are buying everything from Amazon, because that's an easy sale right now. But in the wider kind of platform, like charities, for example, people want to support them. So start supporting your local ones, and then not even local ones, the ones you're engaged with. And yeah, build that awareness about you, your culture, and what your business stands for. But yeah, Emma, sorry.
Harry, I think it does link in quite nicely to Lindsay and I, what we were talking about earlier in terms of purpose. Purpose is clearly about the purpose of your business, but also look at your own purpose and what matters to you and what you stand for. And that's something that Lindsay and I have looked at personally. Because for me, I'm a working mum. I've got a picture behind me of twin boys that I've banned from this room. But for me, being a working mum, juggling work, aside from all of this stuff that's going on now, is always a struggle. So that's something that is quite, well, it's very important to me, and it's something that I want to try and use this as an opportunity to talk about and to really engage in the audiences that I've got in terms of my social media, and looking at what else really matters to you. What I think this going through this kind of crisis, it does make you appreciate, well, okay, I've got all of this stuff in my life. What out of that, what's important, and what are you prepared to get up and talk about with passion? We're accountants. We can talk to you about numbers any day of the week, but with the passion, it's the growth side of things. That is really what lights our fire. Lindsay, did you want to add anything to that?
I just echo everything you said there. At the minute, I think we can all appreciate we don't want to be sold to right now. So none of our clients want to be sold to. And actually, it's now building that relationship with your existing clients and getting your brand out there so that people will remember you, like Joe Wicks has done, as soon as this is all over, so that then they feel they've got that emotional connection, and then they might come to you for advice, and then they might be a future customer.
Cool. I think it's 2 minutes till we finish. We've got 3 questions. I may Colette, I'll contact you about the analytics one, because I think some people will hate me talking about analytics, so sorry about that. And Neil, if we contact you about the video one, professional services, because to be honest, Lindsay and Emma coming from professional services background, and myself, we could probably do that over email in quite a prescriptive way. But we've got a question from Peter Bolton. Can the panel share their thoughts on what is the best way to grow an audience to share their products and service to? I assume that's at the moment now. So
I think at the moment it's like we said with the personal brand, it's ideal getting your people, your face of your business out there. As everyone has touched on really in this webinar, video is definitely a good way of promoting your brand, both personal and business, and the two should link together. And through your video, you can then promote your products or services, or even just touch upon it like we showed with the video about our purpose. It could just be a video demonstrating your purpose so that then people will engage with you, and then they might start looking into what you actually do. So you don't always have to be selling your product or service to be able to get that engagement.
That's a really good point. Richard, have you got any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think in this time what we need to do is that a lot of people are at home. A lot of people are using social media. I think you need to be think of more along the lines of being a giver rather than a taker, really. Contact people in your network, ask them how they're getting on. Ask them how they're dealing with the situation, see if there's any, if they've got any nuggets of information to share with people. Recommend and promote and say well done to other people. I mean, basically in this time, be active on LinkedIn and social media. Remind people that you are there. Don't just post things on LinkedIn saying, here's our new case study of what we did, or here's our new blog post. I think maybe thinking of ways how you can more personally connect with prospects and your network of people. This is really the time to increase communication, I'd say.
Cool. And Emma?
Well, I was just going to chip in with the difference between sort of the push and pull marketing. Just echoing what the other guys have said, and actually talking about things aside from your products is actually looking at trying to pull the market in rather than push your products and services on people. And like we've touched on before, now's not the time to sell to people. People don't want to be sold to. They don't want their products and services pushed on them. So really try to engage in that emotional connection. Think about who you're talking to and what your message is.
Cool. No, that's perfect. Unfortunately, I think you've taken all those items that I wanted to raise, but I'll just say do a webinar as well. Because really, that's giving back to people as well, but it is using stuff like the technology that's available, like this Zoom meeting, even I can do it kind of thing to set this up. So I think, yeah, actually give people the opportunity to come to you because of your knowledge. I think that's the real thing here. But there are a couple of questions, like I said, I'll answer. Well, I'll make sure we contact you guys later, but before I say goodbye, please share it on social media. Once again, we don't want to be Kent's best secret, but no, thank you so much for everyone attending today, and I hope you enjoyed it. But yeah, I'll be in contact later with the report and contact details with everyone. But no, thank you again, and thank you for our guests as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Cool, thank
Bye.
you.
Stay
See you
safe.
later.